Hi, everybody.
Hi,
It's like we
everybody.
went into the classroom before the class began. Um, Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. I am so happy to welcome you all. My name is Sheila Black. I'm a short white woman with crooked legs. You can't see my legs, so I don't know why I put that in my visual description. I'm wearing a black dress, lots of jewelry, a pink scarf, and I have readers on. And my hair is kind of wild and graying and brown and tied in a messy bun. I'm one of the co-founders and the interim executive director of Zoeglossia, and I'm here with Connie Voisin. You want to say hi, Connie?
Hi, I'm Connie Voisin, pronouns she, her, middle-aged white woman with messy hair and in a very messy office. You see the consistent theme. I am a co-founder as well, and I'm zooming in from New Mexico, sunny, windy New Mexico today. So I'm thrilled that this is off the ground now.
Yeah, and I am zooming in from Colorado because, as I was just saying, my oldest daughter of 30 is a single mom, is graduating from college. Yay! And I'm here for her graduation, so I'm doing that in between, going in between. And my pronouns are she, her, and we're really thrilled and honored today because this is our opening circle and keynote, and we're bringing back a beloved writer to us who is going to be introduced by another beloved figure in the Zoeglossia pantheon, our director of programs and partnerships, Salim Hugh-Penny, who's going to say hi, and he's going to introduce our keynote speaker. This is one of those everyone introduces everyone, but we're all getting to know you. So we just want to say welcome. We're really happy you're here.
Thanks so much, Sheila. Hey, good people. My name is Salim Hugh-Penny. Pronouns are he, him, and friend. By way of a visual description, black man, shaved head, mustache, partially visible right-sided cochlear implant. Occasionally, I'll be wearing a semi-transparent eye shield for some facial paralysis, white shirt, and a gold necklace. Behind me is a rocking chair and Ministry of Magic Lego set that one of our twins is quite proud of constructing. It is my honor and my privilege to get ready to introduce our keynote for this evening. But before I do, I just wanted to pause for our accessibility check and see if everybody's needs are currently being met. I know this is kind of a tougher format in that we can't necessarily get visual confirmation. Usually I would ask somebody to raise a hand or to put up an emoji. So I do want to pause, and if there's an access need that's not being met, if that can be communicated via chat, would be great. So I just want to, give us 10, 15 seconds to pause and let people check in for their needs. Thumbs and hearts. Okay. I don't see any sad faces. So taking that, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. If you do have a access need, then there is a contact list that was sent out earlier. You can either text one of us who's on the contact list. Robbie is kind of one of our dedicated tech people, or you can directly use the chat to reach out to one of our hosts. Without further ado, it's my honor to introduce L.Lamar Wilson. L.Lamar Wilson, pronouns he, him, we, us. L.Lamar is the author of Sacrilegion from Carolina Wren Press 2013, a Tom Gunn Award finalist, co-author of Prime, Poetry and Conversation from Sibling Rivalry Press in 2014, and associate producer of The Changing Same, POV Shorts in 2019. This streams at American Documentary and airs on PBS. Recent poems and essays have appeared in Callaloo, Poetry, Poem a Day, the New York Times, Interim, Tri-Quarterly, NPR, Oxford American, The Root, South, the Washington Post, and elsewhere. Wilson, who spent nearly 2 decades in the nation's top newsrooms, including the Times and the Post, has received fellowships from Cave Canem, Civitella Ranieri, Ragdale, and Hurston Wright Foundations, is an Afro-Asian poet and teaches creative writing, African-American poetics, and film studies at Florida State University and the Mississippi University for Women. The one addition, well, I would add many additions, but one is a recent faculty award that should be on that bio. And congrats again on that recent award. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the spotlight and share the focus with L.Lamar Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salim. As the visual description, I am a brownish red-skinned Black man with a Van Dyke beard that's very messy right now, and long, asymmetrical, interlocked hair that I've been growing for about 22 years. I am on my porch here in rural North Florida in a little town called Marianna that you'll hear about tonight. And I have on a black t-shirt with the words in rainbow, kind of like trippy psychedelic letters that spell L-O-V and E, which is what I try to be all about. So I'm just gonna start in the interest of time so we can have a conversation at the end. My talk is called The Invisible Hands in the Stories We Tell Ourselves and You. The invisible hands in the stories we tell ourselves and you. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. I don't know who said it first, but I suspect Google, ChatGPT, and other AI-influenced algorithms will lead your search, as it did mine, to Joan Didion's famous line from the opening essay in the White Album, which also gives her brilliant book, first published in 1979, the year of my birth, its title. Didion is one of millions who died in 2021, and thus one I'll always see as a victim of the COVID-19 pandemic, even though I know AI cites Parkinson's as the cause, not the Omicron variant, which upended my and millions of others' lives in the summer of 2022, 6 months after hers expired on this side of forever. Here is where my brain signals I'm supposed to insert with pith a celebratory sentence noting my survival, but we're not there yet. To make that simple sentence's complexity more transparent, I should tell you I use the pronouns I, he, and we interchangeably in my sentences about myself now. I'll try to explain the latter as an extension of coping with stacked neurodivergence and invisible disabilities later. Alas, as is often the case these days, in which I'm navigating this strange new fog of a diagnosis that was my Valentine's present this year. Post-long COVID adult attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I'm out of sync with the stories I'm trying to tell us. Let's hope we find our way and connect the dots. Let's hope the truths we need to hear affirmed resonate as they come in the ensuing lines, should we fail. Like all former devotees of the tradition formerly known as New Journalism, I was reared to revere Didion's narrative leaps, documenting her engagement with the now of 1966 to 1978, her sweeping sentences of dependent clauses, the rooms, lavish and ramshackle alike, she was in when it happened. It being the volatile years when Black power reared its beautiful, luminous Afro-haloed heads, and when leaders of the LGBTQIA and women's liberation movements took note, raised their fists, bras and flames, flags of flame, and took to streets to fight for their rights too. 2 months and 1 day apart in April and June of 1968, one of those particularly chaotic years, hate gunned down 2 symbols of hope for those rights, Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. Mourning their deaths, half of the nation's rage ravaged several American cities with fire and riots in the subsequent year, documenting the curious trials of Huey P. Newton, Eric Eldridge Cleaver, and other Black Panthers who became this incendiary season's villains, writers like Didion profited off metaphorically rising above the noise to give voice to the other half, inured to, annoyed with, and driven to mental illness by the inanity of the glib, ignorant underclasses who held fast to their racist, sexist, and homophobic ideas, their pseudoscience, the medicalization of difference. These writers documented their descent into and emergence from madness, or in her case, as she discloses in the White Album's opening pages, to quote, an attack of vertigo, nausea, and a feeling that she was going to pass out, end quote. I cite her doctor's notes further here because they haunt me as I process ours. In a technical sense, basic affective controls appear to be intact, but it is equally clear that they are insecurely and tenuously maintained for the present by a variety of defense mechanisms, including intellectualization, obsessive compulsive devices, projection, reaction formation, and somaticization, all of which seem inadequate to their task of controlling or containing an underlying psychotic process and are therefore in process of failure. Getting on with these stories they told the nation about ourselves then, Didion and her new journalism peers confessed their intimacies with and proximity to beleaguered outsiders, quote unquote, named their privilege coolly on the face as detached and unbiased as possible. They were the good guys and dolls of mid-20th century bliss and blight, daughters and sons of that great generation, then as now immortalized in an American myth of white exceptionalism that continues to annihilate all who would get in its way. They were the survivors of 2 wars the globe owned and several it never will, plus 2 pandemics, one of an influenza whose murky origins likely lie in the brownest colonial power in the European West, the other of a polio virus that left thousands hiding their paralyses and limps as best they could to avoid that slur that begins with C, and yet another ancient one, fueled by those isms and phobias whose genocidal toll in Homo sapiens Anthropocene history may never be fully, truly calculable. All that was required of Didion and her new journalists were compelling details, carefully reported from the mules' mouths, about lives as an other that made them less invisible and made the writers heroic. Coming closer to home still, even the white identified purveyors of documentary poetics, most well-meaning, gifted ethnic writers whose work I often appreciate, even love, and find instructive for me and my students, often project onto these others a kind of race-conscious pity almost as virulent as hate, its more pernicious step-cousin, maybe out of necessity or of the limitations of their privilege. Don't mistake my sentiment. Muriel Rukeyser's The Trial from the Book of the Dead was necessary to tell the story of the Scottsboro Nine. Tennesseans aged 13 to 19, falsely accused of sexual assault on a train ride to Alabama and dogged for the rest of their lives with bogus convictions and extended prison sentence, death. But why is it canonized in a way that Christ in Alabama and other pieces in Scottsboro Limited, 4 poems and a play in verse by Langston Hughes, the most famous Black writer of the 20th century, is not? Why? We all know why. Gwendolyn Brooks, one of Hughes's most gifted scions, learned what comes from doing more than jazzing June and demonstrating mastery of traditional prosody in a mock epic that perfectly slices the sonnet and ballad stanza in half. From getting too political, being too Black and angry on the page, putting up a mirror instead of putting on a show. So why bother? Who needs all that grief and trauma anyway? not I, not we. Of what use is this discourse to us, our 21st century verse about what it means to be disabled while processing constant terror? In Poetry, Disability, and Vigilance, his keynote in this hallowed space, my brother Raymond Antrobos spoke about a young mentee's desire to escape quote unquote political poetry and quote unquote identity politics with far better compression and clarity than I can muster here. But I want to urge us to eschew the path Didion's poetic prose has shown will surely make us more palatable and possibly more successful. I want to inspire us to choose instead to be as vigilant as Antrobos compels us in the stories we tell ourselves and any readers who come lurking about the wisdom we and our literary ancestors and kin know. How then do we, the pandemic, Holocaust, and civil rights survivors' children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren become writers as brave as the best of them? Wrest from our now, a pure, more circumspect and ethical art for our children's children. Should we and they outlive today's coronaviruses, fascism, media's insatiable lust for narratives about hateful hands' capacity to quote unquote put down enemies with gunfire, chokeholds, and knees, and the endemic indifference to the suffering of the most vulnerable? How might our poems be at once documents of the ever-present beauty in the natural world all around us, which our human race must recognize in order to, dare say, transcend the chaos besetting it and us, and of the unflinching mirrors of our constant destruction of that beauty in the name of quote unquote progress? How do we craft language so clear, so concise and precise that even the most privileged good guys and dolls' eyes cannot glaze over in its presence? Editors at Carolina Wren Press chose Sacrilegion, my first attempt to enter this millennia-long charge. In the same fortnight, Floridian Trayvon Martin was gunned down by a self-loathing brown man, not unlike the lost soul who killed most of his neighbors in a town outside Houston last week. The same 2 weeks, a recurring character in its poems, my paternal grandmother, Mary Elizabeth Long Wilson, AKA Mom Mary. I stumbled because I never said her whole name. I always just called her Mom Mary. Took her last breath. She was roughly 6 months shy of her 107th birthday. When I think of the great generation, stories about all she survived come into stark relief. How she started working at 15 out of necessity when her sharecropper father and one of her younger 6 siblings died in the wake of that influenza epidemic. How she turned down the advances of a white man who offered her a ride on a then newish technology, his private plane, knowing what he'd expected in return. How she sent as many of her siblings, nieces, and nephews who had the grades and gall to attend college years before she herself would. How she finally did in her 40s with an infant in tow in order to meet state criteria to continue imparting to the youngest at her segregated school the basic tools of reading, writing, and arithmetic. How forced integration in the early 70s forced her to retire early. Under no circumstance would she allow children younger than her grandchildren to call her by her first name, or worse, without the spanking that was legal then. The state of Florida's loss was my boon. I, the youngest of her grands, born with conditions she taught me well to hide. One visible, Erb's palsy of the left hand, resulting from a brachial plexus injury during my breached birth. The others undefinable, if felt, if known, even to me for decades. You'll only find 3 of those stories in Sacrilegion. In Resurrection Sunday, Mom Mary is a young woman in a tiny community of dozens of Black families besieged by thousands and a racist mob who have stormed the streets. hunting a member of their community accused of sexually assaulting and murdering a white childhood playmate. Much of the poem's details are new journalism, imitations of Didion-esque prose with line breaks, because, like many with PTSD, Ma Mary was a vault when it came to recounting the horror. And this is a quote from the poem. In the picture, Claude is alone, but as she speaks, kids blur into the sepia background, ape the grins on their parents' faces. I wrote in one of this piece's shocking turns, now emblazoned on the small screen for any who wish to see us running like the bigger Thomases and invisible men the world has decided we are, to stream at any given moment. However, this brief indictment of white supremacist violence rings as hollow and ineffectual a decade later as does Didion's account of her strange connections to one of Charles Manson's cult members, Linda Kasabian, a Hollywood neighbor whose trial Didion covered and whose children played with Didion's own after she was freed, and with Roman Polanski, the still free rapist and husband of one of Manson's victims, Sharon Tate. The poem continues. I told that boy to leave that white gal alone. The only words breaking the silence of the rest of that ride, the only words her brother says at home, I told that boy to leave that white gal alone. Their script, a shroud over faces suddenly childlike, each crease around their eyes, a dog-eared page the boy can never read. Ma Mary and one of her twin brothers had been good boys and girls who raised good boys and girls, who raised more good girls and good boys, compliant, careful to forget, to never tell a soul, save God, the only father they had to call on most of the 8 to 9 decades they lived after their own was killed by a traumatic contagion that they would never name. So, in the script, Ma Mary taught us to parrot about our births into America's racist crucible, forceps, and subconsciously maybe our own willfulness were the culprits, the hands of the attending doctors and nurses, invisible and innocent. And we were just as capable as anyone else of doing anything we could dream. In her King James Bible, Philippians 4:13 and countless other poetic verses said it, and so it was. While I have more questions than ever about Judeo-Christianity, I hold fast to an unassailable faith in one's metaphysical limitlessness as foundational as one's imagination to making timeless poems about the times in which we live. I want to say that again because I messed it up. While I have more questions than ever about Judeo-Christianity, I hold fast to an unassailable faith in one's metaphysical limitlessness as foundational as one's imagination to making timeless poems about the times in which we live. In Sacrilegion, I failed to give my ties to the great generation the full-fledged childhoods stolen from them. But I did remind the world that they were just babies, really. Ma Mary and her siblings reemerged in Tuesday, Gazelle of the Naptime Blues, and what I should have told the homeless man in Cleveland who mistook me for Mary's son. All documents of their senility, my adolescence, us freckled and riddled with moles, falling over ourselves and one another, getting up, going blind with glaucoma, losing our minds to Alzheimer's and dementia and grief, our inevitable birthrights. Oh, why did I leave you and her here to wither? I swell, burst, and shimmy, waiting in this brush for you to whack headless this serpent whose sleep I've rattled, then kiss my forehead in the setting sun. Life after death ends. Too saccharine, maybe, but as close to the truth as I could divine then about my great aunt Eldorado Jr., Ma Mary's longtime housemate, who, true to the name she inherited from her mother, taught me how to mine the treasure chest of gold that is the blues. Over this past decade, reviewers have commented on themes in Sacrolegion that I suppose have gotten me invited into this community. Poems about not only my paralysis, but the specter of HIV/AIDS over my life. From my earliest days in the 1980s and 90s, watching cousins succumb to its related illnesses, to my 20s in the early 2000s, as lovers and friends left me hollowed by their swift transitions while this century's obsession with manufactured reality began to play out on television and in newspaper print, the latter of which I spent my days and nights perfecting to make a living. I don't know how successful those poems are, but I do know they were necessary to keep me alive amid the PTSD of so much trauma and loss. As a matter of fact, my life as a poet began when I became so bereft and grief-stricken that I walked out of the business the first time through the doors of the Journal-Constitution, a building in downtown Atlanta vacated not long after we abandoned it, sold to developers to stave off bankruptcy, well, almost, who converted it to a high-rise apartment complex. Protesters now occupy the streets I ran into, tears staining my pullover, in opposition of the latest Black mayor's plan for an expanded police force. Good boy that I was, I enrolled in grad school to learn how to write and learned quickly, as mentor Nikki Giovanni reminds me often, that we must find our literary voices and kin on our own. A. Van Jordan, my very first poetry teacher after leaving Atlanta, intoned it best in a recent interview. You don't have to read everything, he said. But whatever you read, you have to read with an annotating mind. You have to understand how the books you read are made. This weekend, your instructors, all gifted artists, will no doubt introduce you to models of art that singularly engages disability, literary forebears to emulate. In truth, what I hope and trust they'll remind you is that centering our own mind's eyes and unpacking our complex subjectivities, individual valences of difference are the prize. That unseating and unsettling the invisible hands in our stories is the hard work before us. These days, as I complete a manuscript that re-engages the post-Reconstruction stories of that great generation in the self-same neighborhood that unfolds in Sacrolegion, I've assembled a motley crew of storytellers who show me the kind of book I hope Take Me Back, Burden Hill can become, all of whom, like so many of us, are survivors of race-based wars and all manners of bodily assaults, which have left us with PTSD, ADHD, and other disabling diagnoses, besides any we entered the world bearing. In their verse, I find descriptions of physical difference that are not self-effacing, a symptom of internalized ableism that seeps into Sacrolegion more than I would have liked. I will quickly share a few that you can explore when you have time. From solitude's crowded and loneliness, the wandering veteran and addict Bob Kaufman, not often enough credited as a father of spoken word poetry, instructs us about making of long lines, metaphorical tapestries where human subjects and our own mourning can uncoil. And I quote, Billie Holiday got lost on the subway and stayed there forever. Raised little peace of mind gardens and out-of-way stations, and will go on living in rappers, that's WRAPPERS, of jazz silence forever, loved. My face feels like an emotional relief map. My face feels like a living emotional relief map, forever wet. My hair is curling in anticipation of my own wild gardening. He writes, and afterwards they shall dance. Lesser known beat poet Marie Ponsat confesses to June Jordan about hiding her quote unquote polio leg in an intentionally unsteady sestina titled Residual Paralysis. Lies have small voice where dancing has its way. She says, I try. If I can stop lying, I will. I'll claim my cramps and limit them that way. Two survivors of war never leave my desk. Lisa Mueller, whose family narrowly escaped Nazi Germany, and who we also lost in the COVID-19 pandemic's early days, and Yusuf Komunyakaa, who has returned to Vietnam's battlefields and the streets of Bogalusa, Louisiana, countless times over the past 5 decades. Haunting me 16 years since I met them still are Mr. Dan of the steel plate from Komunyaka's Magic City, pulled by police, quote, like a moon pulls water, dragged naked into the midnight street dancing, blackjacked to the ground, end quote, and his death. And in New Tango, an unnamed male speaker grappling with sexual violation, quote, something I had to get past in the pit of my belly. And Robert Lee, a speaker's young love in More Girl Than Boy from Copacetic, where, quote, night's pale horse rode you past common sense, end quote. In a recent masterwork, The Body Remembers, from 2021's Everyday Mojo Songs, where of the body, Komunyaka's speaker opines, I doubt it knows words live longer than clay and spit of flesh as rock bottom love. Is it easier to remember pleasure, or does hurt ease truest hunger? Similarly, in Alive Together, Mueller's sculpted odes to her mother keep me coming back. In The Thriving Season, a favorite from 1959, holds so many gems. And this is a long quote from the second stanza. Now ghost-begotten infancies are the marrow of trees and pools, and blue uprisings in the woods spread revolution to the mind. I can believe birth is fathered by death, believe that she was quick when you forgave pain and terror and shook the fever from your blood. As I strive to write about my own survival of sexual assault and upper limb difference, devoid of self-blame and ableist shame, I look to my North Star, Lucille Clifton, who left this plane 22 years to the day she marked her mother's death with her own ode. The same day in 2012, I got the call from Carolina Wren, one of the many ironies of our shared lives intersecting, where ecstatic joy and numbing grief often inhabit the same moment. Poems, I Was Born with 12 Fingers, Speaking of Loss, and others now collected by Boa and How to Carry Water, first published in Two-Headed Woman, Next, and Mercy, are not performative or clipped in their brevity. Clifton's poems about polydactyly as a gift of spiritual foresight to pass on across generations employ a dramatic weave in autobiographical speakers and personae that has led us to our own. In this decade without her, Ma Mary, and so many in our tribe, we have begun to embrace the commingling of masculine and feminine inside, a spiritual knowing that does not need to be externalized, but instead harnessed. In owning what Indigenous peoples call two-spirit being, we have found ways to embrace other invisible ancestral hands. Our poems' layers now easier to parse and render than ever before. At the end of the White Album, Didion, then in her 40s, discloses a multiple sclerosis diagnosis that would be a precursor to the Parkinson's that would kill her, sharing her neurologist and sensitivity without comment. Quote, the name had no meaning. This was an exclusionary diagnosis and meant nothing, end quote. Thank goodness, 45 years on, we have a space like Zoeglossia, where we can untether our work from the medicalizing language that has defined us for far too long. Thank goodness for Sheila Black and Connie Boissine and other founders, and for fearless past, present, and future leaders, including Salim Hupini, Walela Nahanda, Meg Day, and Kamisha Jones, who are ensuring that this community is as diverse in as many ways as we can imagine. And most of all, we are so very grateful for all of you who have filled and refilled our spiritual wells in the past 2 years that we have been among you. We are still in awe of the epic work of DJ Savaresi and Leslie McIntosh, the latter of whom I've known for years and am particularly proud to see come together in fuller focus and bloom because of what we're building together. Of so many of you, we cannot name because of our time constraints. We leave you with the sage words of another literary ancestor in our disabled community, Rita Dove, from a little known poem, The First Book, which you can find in On the Bus with Rosa Parks. And it reads in full, "Go ahead, it won't bite. Well, maybe a little. More a nip-like, a tingle. It's pleasurable, really. You see, it keeps on opening. You may fall in. Sure, it's hard to get started. Remember, learning to use knife and fork. Dig in. You'll never reach bottom. It's not like it's the end of the world, just the world as you think you know it. Ride on, Laureate Dove. Now let's ride on, friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's throw in like, if you could throw in like a million emojis. Yes, all the emojis, all the emojis, all the threads. I'm going to read out some of the comments. Not all of us can access the chat. We have, oh my days, we are so beautiful. Thank you, L.Lamar. We have beautiful, 5 hearts. We have a thank you. We have a million claps. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 exclamation marks. We have a heart and a hibiscus flower. We have a thank you. We have a heart. We have an ashe. We have a wow, 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 wow. We have a whoa and an aw weepy. We have that you'll never reach bottom. Rita Dove with a heart, 5 big hearts, another sideways heart. Oh my, filled with so much love. Okay, Miss Lucille. And we continue with more wow, wow, wows and LOL, a gracias, a million claps, and outstanding, and another thank you. A wondrous and a loved, love, loved. Oh, let me not stop. We have amazing L.Lamar, simply amazing.
Oh gosh. You know, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a crybaby. And so, you know, I met Leslie. I just have to say, I met Leslie in another writing space. Oh God, I'm sorry. And he was so, you know, I just know he needed Zoeglossia. And I see how he has blossomed in this space. And I have, you know, as somebody who is, you know, felt like a failure over this last decade trying to finish this second book, and have dealt with so much of the complex feelings of love, of being seen and celebrated, but also knowing that I'm being sort of used by people who don't understand us. And so I just got emotional because I'm just so proud of being a part of this group. And I appreciate the love Lord knows I need it, and I give it back to you. And I wish I could have celebrated so many and named so many of you all, but I'm just so honored to be among you. And I hope these words launch you into a week end of wondrous writing. But I think we're supposed to do Q&A, right? I'm gonna try to stop crying. I'm sorry.
We have a love to you, L.Lamar. They can't fathom your brilliance. We are blessed by you. And I think we will open it again with it being in the webinar space and not quite where we can all see each other in the squares that some of us might be used to. We'll have to kind of be a little flexible. We do have the ability to take people off of to take people from unmuted. So because I do think it'd be nice to actually be able to voice a question if you're able and interested in voicing. So maybe if somebody wants to, I can, or any of the co-hosts, we can click an individual person to let them be off mute.
If you guys want to raise your hand, attendees, and I could activate your microphone in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I know we have one question that's already in the chat I can read out. It's from Susie. How does the beleaguered rural life hell with the urban mindset of culture? How does the beleaguered rural life? I'm not exactly sure if I'm reading it correctly.
I think I kind of get a sense of what they're saying.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say what I think they're saying, and then if you could let me know let us know in the chat if this is what you're asking. So I think like how, as somebody who grew up in a rural life that is fraught with this, this complex history, how do I make sense of that rural life juxtaposed with the urban life that I knew as an adult when I was working in places like Atlanta and Washington, D.C. and these other quote unquote metropoles that I occupied? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're asking, Susie?
It looks like we have a JELL. I know that Susie's doing the whole retreat from an iPhone. So yes, we have a yes confirmation.
Okay. So, well, as I try to say at the end of Sacrilegion, I never really left here. I think we may delude ourselves that when we leave a place, we leave a place. But I mean, as much as I described the pain that my grandparents lived with, I wasn't raised with it. I had to go searching for an understanding of these people who were, by all accounts, quite happy, joyful people who raised me in this idyllic terrain. I live on like a lot of land out in the middle of nowhere that we own, that after all this horrible thing happened, my grandmother bought an insane amount of land for a Black woman on a teacher's salary in 1940s. I don't know how, to this day, I'm still searching through courthouse records to try to figure out how these transactions took place. I've gone back as far as 1874 when her great-grandfather bought the first 5 acres, and he bought it, even though we were told in the mythologies that I was told that it was given to us by his former slave master, who was allegedly either his father or grandfather. I found the deed and he bought it with his own money. And so I have gone through unpacking their stories in order to understand, how did they not become bittered, angry people? How did they raise me to not hate white people or anyone, to love everyone, to treat everyone with human kindness? So that kind of love that you see on screen and that you feel in the classroom space and that you see when you encounter me is who I was raised to be, is who they were and who they are. And that I have taken that spirit, those spirits with me, with us, wherever I have gone around this world. And so it may have been beleaguered to a sense with the vestiges of history and the vicissitudes of history and the evils of history. But in my lived experience, I was so, I was raised to kind of to see the hatred, but not have it infect me. And to also maybe wrongly pity those people because they were bereft. You might have heard Toni Morrison talk about this, you know, the kind of defensive racism that she was raised with. I wouldn't necessarily call it racism, although my grandmother did not have high thoughts of a lot of the white people in the community because she knew them and she knew some of the things that they had done. But she did not raise me to look down on them in a sense, more so to, as she would say, pray for them, to have empathy for them. So that kind of positionality of empathy is what I kind of walk through the world with. And it made for, I would argue that I was lonelier in the city space where the kind of person that I was raised to be was few and far between, where there was more of a transactional set of relationship building that I never could quite fit into. I was always trying to find community, build community, and I would find people who often came to me out of necessity or need. But thankfully, I did find my people, and I'm so glad I found you all, and you are part of that we now. I hope that answers the question, Susie.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a question from Bri that's in the chat. You mentioned that you wrote about surviving sexual assault in your work. I'm also writing about sexual assault as it relates to my gender journey. How do you write about this kind of sensitive material without letting it take you away completely?
You know, I'm still figuring that out. I kind of wrote around it in Sacrilegion because until about 7 years ago, I had rewritten, as many sexual assault survivors do, the entire narrative in my brain and had centered myself as the one at fault. So I've spent this past 7 years doing the kind of therapy that is necessary to try to not render on the page a kind of self-blame that unfortunately was an internalized ableism. The poems that I feel are the more successful ones in this manuscript, some of which are published. There's one about Chris Brown called Cake that you can find. I wrote, I think I often think about music and song and the blues. And in Sacrilegion, where I wrote about it, I wasn't writing it autobiographically. I was sort of writing persona poetry. You know, I was positioning myself as Lot's daughters, for instance, and questioning the sort of narrative that they got their father drunk and seduced them when they were quite young, you know, girls/women. That the whole idea of that seemed quite, you know, convenient for a man who had impregnated his daughters. And so for, if we are to believe what, you know, the biblical narrative of what happened, and the genealogy that the Bible sort of gives us of all that came from Lot. And so in this new work, what I often find myself doing is embracing silence instead of trying to feel it with a lot of noise. I think that's the best answer I can give. There is a lot of caesura in this new work. There's a lot of gaps of silence. In fact, 2 years ago, when I was first invited into the space and to represent the space at AWP, I think I read one of the poems that I had written, which was about HIV and in some ways about that sexual assault experience. And it's called Closure, 2 words, this space closure. And it ends without ending. It doesn't continue beyond the moment. And so I think what I would encourage you to do is, if you feel it is too much, take care of yourself first. Let the poem take care of itself later. Give yourself space and time for the poem to come to you and unfold as best as you can make it. But don't hurt yourself in trying to make something that's going to live outside of you forever. Because as I told you, you know, Sacrilegion is something that increasingly I'm at once proud and sometimes disappointed with, even as I give myself the grace of knowing that I did the best I could at the time, you know? I hope that helps. And by caesura, I mean like pause and break, just like a silence break. Thank you, Kay, for putting that in the chat. Yeah, just give yourself a break. I mean, poems, the beauty of writing poems is that we get to make the syntax and we can break all the rules. I did some of that in the essay. Some of those sentences were intentionally ungrammatical and run on and fragmented. So do with language whatever you need to do to say what you can say the best you can, and then stop when you can't. Don't push yourself into a space that feels unsafe, that is going to be harmful to you, not in the service of someone else, this experience of it. Because, out of all, we have to write first for ourselves. We have to write the stories that we need to tell ourselves in order to heal and to move on.
Thank you. Can I read this next question? This is from, let's see, this is from Ethne. I was raised to destroy myself and others. Life has done its best in my 5 decades to beat love into my way of poetry. Sorry, I'm going to start over. I was raised to destroy myself and others. Life has done its best in my 5 decades to beat love into my way of being. Poetry has been my way of learning because poetry was something I could pour my love into. What would you say to the destroyers amongst us who are learning to shape love instead of hurt?
What I would say is, when you say love, what do you see? Cultivate more of that. When you feel love, what do you smell? Write that down. When you hear love, what do you feel? Write that down. Love to me is as all-encompassing of the completely synesthetic, that's I'm gonna write that in the chat, like the fully experience of all the sensations and all the emotions at the same time. That's what poetry gives us space and time to do, to blur, because the trauma of the destruction, which we all know, also comes with all those senses being thrown out of whack. So if you can pour into your poems what love feels, smells, tastes, sounds like, you can make the kind of art that both will serve you first and then serve all of your readers. Because we all experienced those things at some point. Or if we haven't experienced them yet, the poems give us space to experience them and imagine them for ourselves vicariously through another part of another part of us. Because every poem I read becomes a part of me. I've never been to Berlin, not yet, but I feel like I'm there when I read, Liesl Mueller, or when I read other people. So I just think that it's important for me and for you to understand what our individual understanding of love, I should say, to unpack what our individual understanding of love looks, smells, tastes like, and make sure and examine that. Is that love? Is that loving? How does that feel, taste, smell, taste? So forth and so on. So that's what I would say, synesthetic. Thank you, Salim. Yeah, synesthesia is like all the senses. I hope that answers your question, and keep on writing, Irene. I had to think about that for a minute, because I'm like, what does love, when I think of love, how do I experience it? That's a big question. Thank you. Oh, there are two. Oh, okay.
I am
Hi,
happy to.
am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Hi. This was so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. I think something
Can you say your
about-
name just so everyone can know?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Olivia Mewins. One thing, I kind of have two related questions around what you mentioned about a new diagnosis of fatigue. One, in a more practical sense, this is something that I've been dealing with for a very long time, and it has such a profound effect on my life, obviously, but also my writing practice and my ability to do anything. And I was wondering how that's shaped the way you approach writing now and what you're doing to continue making things, because it can be hard to produce anything in general. And then it also made me think about the ongoingness of disability, and it's like this nice thing that's always changing shape, but there's also this intense instability and uncertainty of it if you have a not static illness. And I was just curious what you thought about that and how that shaped your writing as well.
Thank you so much for sharing, Olivia, and for being here with me. You have more experience. This is very new for me. So I was someone who was always on. You know, I was somebody who could get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go until 10 o'clock at night. And then I would go to bed pretty early and get up at 4 o'clock and do it again. And when I was younger, it was like get up at 4 o'clock and go to bed at midnight and get up at 4 o'clock. And you know what I've had to learn to do? Take naps when I need it. Sleep when I need it. Just say no sometimes. And I was very nervous, I'll be honest with you all, about saying yes to this keynote, because I had not even, I think, told Sheila about long COVID and about this I literally got the ADHD diagnosis days before I came to AWP. So I was very tired the whole time I was there. I only came for that day, and I stayed in all of that day just so I could have the energy to be with you all. Besides the fact that the last time that I had traveled, I got COVID. I had not been on a plane since I got COVID. That just shows you how much I love you all and how so necessary it was for me to be in the room with you. I was really willing to risk getting sick again just to be with you, because I knew that those hugs and that time spent being together would be worth it. Thankfully, I didn't get sick again. But I said that to say that I've had to change my whole life. And I've had to say to my job and to my friends and to my family, I'm not the Lamar you knew before July 3rd, 2022. And I may never be the same. And I haven't yet started medication, because you know there's a like everything else, there's not enough Adderall. There's a shortage of Adderall right now. And I have some friends who say, I don't know if you want Adderall, you know, like in this space, I can talk about this kind of stuff, you know, but like, you know, and I might need your help because this is such a new diagnosis, like what meds have worked for you and what things have worked for you. So Olivia, I might be reaching out to you and others to say like, you know, how do you take care of yourself? But what I've learned is that I just went to my job and said, hey, I have this new diagnosis and I'm going to need maybe some extra time to finish this book. You know, I have 2 books, one under contract and 2 others that are on the precipice of being under contract. One is a book of poems. The others this is sort of an excerpt that what I read for you tonight from a journalism memoir that deals with, I walked out of the newsroom twice. Both times it was about kind of an anti-Black moment where I was asked to do something that was so viscerally anti-Black that it made me physically ill. And I walked out of the newsroom and vowed not to go back. And thank goodness I landed on my feet and I was able to move on with my life and career. But I've had to go to my job and say, like, I have these books and yes, I should be able to go for tenure and promotion and whatever, but hey, I'm going to need more time. I'm not okay right now. That's been very hard for me, Olivia, because I've always been the Lamar who could do anything, anytime, on a dime. I worked in a newsroom where I was empowered to be the person who could edit things very last with the 10 minutes that we had on deadline, get through it all, make sure it had no errors and get it out and write a headline that was poetry. They used to call me the person who wrote poetry in headlines before I got a job writing poetry, believe it or not. So that the Lamar of today, I don't know how he would be in newsrooms, you know. So thank goodness I got out, you know, and found something like art that is interestingly more forgiving than one might imagine. So what I would say to you specifically, Olivia, is be kind to yourself. Find the times that are that you find that you are the most productive and protect them at all costs. If you know it's a writing day for you and you can't do anything else, then don't do anything else. Don't let anything get in the way of that, if that's what your intentions are. And if that day comes and it just isn't happening, just say it's not happening today. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's where I am. And I hope that is encouraging you to stay wherever you are, doing whatever you need to do to be as productive. And I hate that word because it's so tied to labor and you know, all of the other things that we are already tasked with doing. But unfortunately, you know, or fortunately, I'm very blessed to work in academia right now, ironically in the state of Florida, where, you know, literally I'm starting a class on Monday that's about non-binary literature because I'm such a subversive, you know, terrible, disobedient child. And the students are loving it and are enrolling and need it. And there's no pedagogy that has existed like this at Florida State. And I'm exhausted, you know, but I could not say no to the opportunity to try to think about what would I want to say as a thank you to this community. And so I said yes to Sheila because I figured, and she gave me plenty, and Salim and Sheila gave me plenty of time. And I just paced it out over the last few months, even though it really didn't come together. It was just a lot of snippets of ideas until Joan Didion. There was a lot of stuff in the middle, but Joan Didion was the thing that came together just on Monday, believe it or not. And I just was kind of able to zoom into thinking about this idea of the stories we tell ourselves on Monday. And then it kind of came into focus because I still am a deadline-oriented person. And I knew I had a deadline of today. And I kind of pushed myself and didn't do anything else. In fact, these are the same clothes I have had on for 2 days, thankfully. If I can be so transparent. And I slept on the couch and I got up at 4 o'clock this morning so that I could rest one more time and go through and try to get all these typos out for Joe and Dan. No, Dave. Is it Dave or Dan? I'm so sorry. Trying to look and make sure I have his name. Dan, you know, Tom, that's who it is. Joe and Tom, so sorry, forgive me. So, you know, who are doing, let's all give them our celebration because I run my mouth, but yeah, like this is such a special space that I had to try my best. But I would say protect yourself and protect your time so that you can, when you have to be productive, you can be as productive as you can to do what you want to get done. I don't know if that answers you, Olivia.
Can we maybe do one more? I see the Leslie threw her hand up, and I know that Lamar, you've been in dialogue, so maybe I could hop over to Leslie. Does that work for folks? I know I haven't been keeping up.
And Kay has a question too.
Apologies.
That I want to say. No. Go ahead with Leslie, and then I really do want to address Kay's question because I think it's relevant to the community, and I don't know when I'll be in front of you all again to address. And I'll try to find a way to maybe include it in my response to Leslie, whatever the question might be.
Okay. All right, Leslie, you should be, as long you should be able to unmute now.
Lamar, you know, my love for you, I can't even describe it. I'm going to make this as brief as I can so that Kay can ask their question. Thinking about what you just talked about in terms of managing productivity, and also thinking about like the various threads that we see all throughout your keynote regarding in certain ways talking about like fugitive legibility is how I think about it, like managing being like how to be read by those who consider your presence optional, if that, and thinking about conversations that I'm reading and involved in personally regarding the Neely murder that happened in New York City very recently, and then thinking about a way of being that is in and of itself pretty innocuous, but not being legible there are consequences to it. And in your work and in your being and everything, like you navigate that. And so I was interested in you not necessarily giving answers because I don't believe in those, but I guess talking about like your experience, your embodied and sensory experience, your spiritual experience when you are using craft as a writer to like walk that tightrope between the legible, as you just said, being a terrible and willful child and these things like that, which are necessary, doing that and risking illegibility and everything that comes with it, but then also like managing access and availability in whatever way that works for you at the moment in that particular work. Like, what does that feel like when you hit that chord, that balance?
Okay. And then I'm going to read Kay's question and answer them both in tandem because I think they're connected. So Kay says, could you please talk to the fellows and those of us more about how you navigate the literary ink and its capitalist, ableist, and white supremacist trappings? As you are someone who has gone to many residencies and fellowships, I would love to hear about what collective care means in a writing community for you. And so Leslie, you know, when you talk about legibility, I want to tell a story about a beloved person from whom I'm estranged in a community called Cave Canem because of something that was said to me. And this is a very famous writer, so I'm nervous that this is being recorded, but it's an important story to tell because it was done in love. So after Sacrilegion had come out, this writer said to me, this is a beautiful book. And I hope that now you can move on because you're so much more than this. And they meant the best by it. They wanted me to have more agency in the world. They were worried about what being a disabled writer could do to pigeonhole me. How what was ostensibly invisible to the world, like your hand isn't that big of a deal, you know, like nobody can really tell. You know, so do you have to, like, you can move on now. I'm glad you got that out. You know, what are the other things that you can get to now? And to this day, I've never really been able to confront that comment other than doing so in this moment where I feel safe to do so. And maybe if they see it, they'll know. But what I can say is that I haven't really reached out to that person very much other than to say congratulations and I love you, which I do, and to receive the love that comes to me when something nice happens for me. But in that moment, it was so clear to me that they didn't necessarily know all the other invisible things that were a part of it, that were also being worked out in the poems, that all they saw was that my hand kept recurring, which is why I turned to Lucille Clifton, right? Because she talks about hands incessantly. She, like, if you Google hand, like if you could take her book and put it into like Google, hands are everywhere. And her 12 fingers are everywhere, not named once, not named 5 times, not named, I would say maybe 10 times. I've sat with her long collected and I see it again and again and again. And I don't know if that critique would have been given to Lucille Clifton, not only because she's Lucille Clifton, but because she does it well. Maybe they were trying to say I didn't do it well. I don't know. But I know that for me, what I have done to answer your question, Kay, in tandem with this, to find community, is to find the people who say, I really like that. How about you think about how to bring in this element of who you are? And those people are people like Khadijah Queen, who's also in that community, who I will happily name. And people like Salim Hugh Penny, and people like Philip B. Williams. I could just go on and on. Toy Derricott, who's dear to me and who's the mother of that space and who has never told me not, who also incessantly has written about the same subject matter for 60, 70 years almost. And so I think in whatever you call obsessions and whatever this corporate structure of people who really often mean us well look like most of the time, who want us to have more agencies and better jobs and to excel and not only get tenure and promoted, but to become, administrators in these spaces and to create residencies and to do all these things that we are empowered to do by our successes. We have to find the people who will not tell us we have to be anything less than who we are in all of its fullness in order to move to that next level, whatever that looks like, or to go deeper inside of the poem to the underneath of the underneath. Or as Lucille Clifton says, inside that poem is an other poem, and other, 2 words, an other poem. So yeah, that's my answer to the both of you. I mean, Leslie, you are a part of that community. You are someone who, through a mutual love of Bayard Rustin, who now the world is finally hip to, thankfully, we were able to continue to say, how can we circle inside of this love we have of this person and of each other and push each other to find the deeper poem, that and other poem that's inside of us. And so, yeah, I think Kay and Leslie, I have done it by saying yes. Nikki Giovanni is one of those people in my life. She's like a mother to me, and I'm her prodigal son. That's my joke. I'm always the prodigal who runs off and says, I can do this, I don't need this, and da 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 da. And then I come back crying and she says, come here, baby, like what do you need? And here's what, okay, you stumbled here. Let me help you figure out how to move on here. I mean, I've had 3 different jobs, y'all, because I was like, y'all are not gonna box me in. I mean, at the University of Alabama, I was only supposed to be a poet, and I got a PhD in the midst of being there, and they didn't want me to teach lit classes. So I was like, please. And then I went to Wake Forest, and I was like, oh, this pandemic is maybe gonna kill my parents. So peace, I gotta go take care of my mom and dad, and now here at Florida State, I'm continually to say, hey, I wanna teach film studies class. I've made this film. And they've said yes. And I wanna teach lit classes. And I wanna teach this non-binary literature class in spite of, the dominion that wants to unfold from on high in the State House down the street. And they've said yes. So as long as I embrace the people who say yes to me, however I show up, I always land on my feet. I always get more opportunities. I get invited to go to Italy to write, which is going to happen next year if I live to see it. I get invited to show my film in Rome. I get invited, so I don't think you have, the lesson that I have learned, Kay and Leslie, is the only danger we have is believing the lie that we have to be less than who we are in the fullness of that. That is the lie that can trap us and limit us. It is the only lie. It is the original lie. Oh, yes. Lucille Clifton says, surely I am able to write poems celebrating grass and how the blue and the sky can flow green or red and the waters lean against the Chesapeake shore like a familiar poem about nature and landscapes, surely, but whenever I begin, the trees wave their knotted branches, and why is under that poem always an other poem? Thank you, Celine. It's one of my favorite of her poems.
Thank you. I hope I don't have to be that one who has that job of transitioning us to another event, because this is like, I'm just like, can this be our night? Can we just like pull up the blanket, get out the heating pack and just like, get that DoorDash and just call it. But
thank y'all for being with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Definitely stay on the Zoom. I think that our plan had been to give everybody obviously a glass of prosecco. I don't know if I'm allowed to endorse that on the Zoom or not, Leslie. That we definitely wanted to give folks a bio break, et cetera, and then we were going to transition into an opening circle, and kind of our hope with that is a chance for us to be able to see each other, and just kind of get oriented a bit. I feel that L.Lamar's words really set the type of tone that the team has talked about when we sort of dream about how the retreat space can welcome us in. And so I feel like a lot of the sort of like formal, like, now we're going to make this rule, like a lot of that is I feel like a lot of the safety and trust that those things often are enforced for. I feel like in a lot of ways, some of that safety and trust has already been established just by the keynote. So I appreciate that. So Sheila, I'm kind of checking in with you, and Connie, I'm kind of checking in with you in real time to see if, and perhaps I'm checking in with AS with NMSU as well. For the opening circle, do we have the option of being in the space where everyone can see each other, or are we locked into webinar view? For
Yeah.
example, if we all log off and come back, you know, so I just want to sort of, I don't know, maybe we could have break while we problem solve it, but I just wanted people to have a sense of what to expect. I know it's nice to, you
Yeah,
know, for planning.
David, that was my question. Could you promote everybody to being in the room?
Yeah, what I could do, I could promote everybody as a panelist, and that will give
That would be
everybody
great.
option to show their video and
Perfect.
speak. So I can do that. Yeah, I can do it during the break.
On this recording, before we go up, I just realized I said something that wasn't true. The University of Alabama told me I could teach, but I could not necessarily publish and get tenure on the basis of my, like I only could publish poems. So let me just correct that for the record on the
But that's
recording.
pretty great. I mean, that's pretty, it's, you know, but yes.
Anyway,
So,
sorry.
no, but so, yeah, I'd love to promote everyone to be a panelist, Salim and Connie. Are you there still too? And how, I guess we thought our opening circle, Salim, what were you thinking? I was thinking it's a chance to hear from all the new fellows, have everyone kind of introduce themselves, say a few words.
Yeah, I was gonna drop just because it's tough when we're all like in different circle. I was gonna essentially drop a stack, a name stack in the chats, just so we don't have to do that sort of like who's like. I always get anxious that it's like middle school basketball and I didn't get picked, and they're all like, did anybody else not get introduced? I'm like, man, I forgot. So we'll just sort of put in a list of folks' names, and we can just sort of model how we're hopefully going to go through as far as visual description,
pronouns.
Yeah. No, I understand, Petra. Yeah, that folks, I understand. So yeah, so we'll just kind of model that. We will be mindful of time because we do have, thank you. Because we do have time constraints that we want to be respectful of. I know like any minute my kids are going to walk in this door as well. So I think what we'll do is we'll really hold pretty tight to since we have about 20 of us.
Yeah.
You know, really holding tight to like a 2-minute sort of just you know, a 2-minute approach, and I'll type in the chat kind of what we'll sort of reflect on as we introduce ourselves. Understand that we're going to have more opportunities throughout the week. You're going to build a lot of connections with the 7-8 people in your workshop group. We're going to have the optional opportunities in the afternoons to sort of merge across the workshop groups. Again, readings, we try to kind of split it up so you're not necessarily always with the same core folks. And then again, Sunday is a chance for us all to come back. So I don't want this by any means to feel like it's your only chance to see each other. There's a contact list that I'll send out. I'm just waiting for a couple more people to give me their contact info, and I'll send it out this evening. So then you all can really individually sort of reach out to each other and be able to connect that way as well. So what if we do a five minute, I mean, 5 feels so short, y'all. I don't like doing this part of it because I am like a solid like 10-minute person, but I also like I'm getting like DMs that people are like, I'm leaving. So I'm kind of being honest. I'm kind of trying to juggle those competing priorities of wanting us to have enough rest before we convene, but also recognizing that some people are dropping off. So ideally I could see everybody and make a consensus decision because I don't prefer to make this decision alone. If we're going on 5 minutes or 10 minutes is essentially what I'm trying to ask the group right now. Okay, we can do 7. Okay. All right, I think, yeah. Okay, we're getting a lot of fives. Okay, in that case, let's go ahead and go with five. And then we'll reconvene. Once we reconvene, I'll have the list of our names in the chat stack, and I'll write underneath what we would like to each be able to say in our 2 to 3 minutes, recognizing that we want everyone to be able to share. Yeah. Okay. All
Great.
right. Thanks, everybody. You might want to, mute if you haven't, just in case you're like, I don't know, gargling water in the background or whatever. Just good. Perfect. All right. So, hi, my name is Salim. We tend to try to say our name first when we're speaking, particularly not everyone might have a camera on. Sometimes there's a lag for when the Zoom box goes to the next speaker, and some people will be attending via phone. So if we can just start off just stating name is always super helpful. As we did earlier, a visual description, again, is a great way to just help us be centered and oriented with who we're speaking with. So I gave my visual description earlier, and then in this case, the ones that I'm hoping we could say anytime we're about to start a session, if there's a particular access need, that's being said. So I tend to say that before we're doing any other intro, that just, really like, so we can know that we're all here, who we are, a description, and if there are any access needs. So we'll often start off our workshops like that. So again, Salim Penny, okay, it's not to me. Pronouns are he, him, and friend. And the questions are one aspect of your identity that you don't necessarily or often bring into other spaces, but you hope to welcome in during the retreat space. And then if you can just state your home and or where you're zooming in from, it can be either. Okay, so I'll say for me, pronouns he, him, friend. One aspect of my identity that I'm hoping to be able to bring in a bit more is being being. It sounds weird, but I think chronic pain is a thing I'm dealing with a lot more, and it's not an identity I often sort of say out loud. It feels weird because it's just an identity I don't often say. So I'm hoping that I can kind of bring that into the space and be in my body a bit more. Home for me is the dirty South, and I'm zooming in from Southside Chicago. Next up in the chat stack, please hop in. I believe it's Petra.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Lovely to be in the audio space with you all. I am Petra Kappers. My pronouns are she and her. And one aspect that you don't often hear from. So my experience living with pain, mobility issues, mental health stuff means that one of the areas I'm really interested in is horror. And an area that I'm going to let out more and more is how this horror writing will influence my poetry work and horror, and also true crime and some stories that happened in the areas where I'm living now. So, and home is Anishinaabe territory. I come from, coming to you normally from Ypsilanti, Michigan, but right now from Crystal Lake, a beautiful spot in up north Michigan where Stephanie and I just arrived. And this is where we're going to spend the Zoeglossia residency. Thank you. And I'm so glad to be part of you here.
Next up is me. My name is Irene Lara Silva. You can call me Irene. You can say Irene if the rolling R is difficult for you. You can also call me Silva, which is what I've been called at work for the last 25 years. I am zooming in from Austin. Incredibly excited to be here, and I will be faculty for, well, I guess for everybody over the next 2 days. My workshop will be focusing on writing from and to the body, and making the body an ally in our creativity. And I'm not sure that there's any part of my identity that I don't splat all over the place, whether it's pain or diabetes or culture or my love of dinosaurs. I just splat it everywhere, tell everyone all the time. So that's me, and so happy to be here. Chris, you're next. If there's no Chris, Jerome is next.
I can't tell. Okay. Anyway, I'm Chris and I'm they or she, maybe more they lately. I guess I always feel in between. So because I speak, but I'm deaf and use sign, and it's just, and I'm obsessed with nature and I'd rather probably not be human at all. So I'm trying to find the space of writing about all of that and bringing that all together, the deafness, the nature, the non-human. And I also love horror and write both fiction and poetry. So I try to always bring poetry into the fiction the most. And I come from New Hampshire. And I guess that's it. Okay. Okay.
If Jerome is not on, then we can proceed to Carl. Sorry, I was just scrolling back. I also know Carl is in London, so we have a lot of time zones going on. Is Pinka is in India, so that's an 11-hour time difference. So I don't think Pinka is on currently. So we'll go to Kay next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kay Ulandai Barrett. My pronouns are he and they. I will be guest faculty with you all, and I am so excited for the new fellows as well as the returning. I'm excited to just revel in all that you're making and creating. An aspect of my identity is that I write a lot about nature right now. I'm just surrounded where I live now, which is Lenape-Muncie-Hoking land in New Jersey. So I'm writing a lot about birds, which reflects on actually what Salim had us do an exercise on birds the last time. So yeah, my next book feels very nature, eco-poetics based and very singular because I'm very isolated and I'm unable because of ableism to go to places. So it's just me and the starlings. I, again, am in New Jersey, Muncie, Lenape land. And so I'm excited to meet you all and thank you for your time.
I think Armand had to hop off. Tanya.
It's Armand. I'm here actually.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, great.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my name is Armand. My pronouns are he, him. One identity, I think it's like a balance of like being in spaces where I feel like only can bring like either I'm trans or I'm brown. And definitely don't have I think being like mental disabilities and pain is not something that is ever welcomed in those spaces. So that's something I'm excited about to hold and be held in a community that understands how that impacts us as poets, as artists. I am zooming in from Portland, Oregon.
So Tanya.
Yes, I'm here, Salim. I'm so sorry. I thought I was waiting for you to call my name. Hi, everybody. I'm Tanya Suler. It's such an honor to be here sharing this space with you all. Hello to the faculty as well. I'm part of the Zoeglossia staff. My pronouns are she and her. I'm coming to you from Georgetown, Texas. I recently moved here. part of my identity, an aspect of my identity to share. So as well as being a poet, I too, like Chris, and enjoy writing fiction as well. I believe it was Chris who mentioned fiction. So yeah, it's just really great to be here, and I look forward to getting to know you more during the retreat. Please reach out if you need help with anything or have questions. Thanks, Salim.
Okay, hello. My name is Sabrina Jamaluddin. My pronouns are she, her, hers. One aspect of my identity that I don't often bring to spaces, probably, so I'm Arab, disabled, and queer. Probably the queer identity, and specifically like writing poetry about love. I'm a spoken word poet, and I've had like a lot of requests for love poems, and I don't know, I haven't gotten into that and would like to. And then home, the places that I call home are Cincinnati, Ohio, Beirut, Lebanon, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and Chicago, Illinois, and I am currently zooming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jo Bear, and I use she, her pronouns. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here with all of you and to be in your company. An aspect of my identity that I don't necessarily bring into other spaces. I think as a queer disabled person, my asexuality is something that I'm still sort of negotiating in terms of, as a queer woman, someone who's often sort of hypersexualized, and as a disabled person who's sort of desexualized, sort of negotiating and situating a relationship to asexuality that fits right is still something that I'm sort of using poetry to sort of work through for myself. Yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. And home for me right now is Dublin, Ireland. That's where I am at the moment, and where I am sort of in the process of moving back to Turtle Island from. So I won't be able to be with you for the majority of the retreat as I make that move, but it's so good to be here with all of you.
Susie, we have you up next, and I think that as far as spotlight, I do believe that Tom is spotlighted. Please let me know if folks cannot see Tom right now in ASL.
Hi. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Sorry, I didn't know if you could see us. I don't know
Oh.
if you're on phone or camera or both.
It's allowing audio but not camera, but I can hear and I can see little squares, kind of Brady Bunch like. Hi. Hi, my name is Susie. I'm an app girl. I'm talking to you from an iPhone in the Ocala National Forest where it's raining and interrupting the signal. I never think about pronouns, but I used to teach grammar, so you could say she and her, and I am neurodivergent, which I abbreviate as ND, and then pluralize as N, big D, small n, and I don't get to say that too much. So thank you. And thank you for the honor and privilege of being here. Truly, deeply. You guys have been like a huge lifeline because I'm in ISO, forever quarantine. So this is huge. Thank you ever so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sylvia Chan. I go by she, her, and I am in Tucson, Arizona. I have a fake hand, which I am comfortable sharing in spaces I trust and in my writing. However, in my day job, the toxic academic, it's something that to the untrained and perhaps abled eye, I can pass as able. So it's something that at times I choose not to correct others who misidentify me or just stay silent in that moment. And I'm just so glad to be back with you all and looking forward to sharing space.
Sheila.
I think I appeared twice on the list, but that's cool. Hi, I'm Sheila Black. I'm one of the co-founders and interim executive director of Zoeglossia. I'm thrilled to be here. I have a grandchild running around because my daughter's graduating from college this week, so it's a little multitasky. An aspect, my pronouns are she, her, and visual description is just that I think I already gave that earlier, but the one thing I guess I don't bring into my identity a lot is I really related to what Lamar said in the keynote of how he used to be able to go and go. I have a for birth disability, and as you get older, it becomes more of a chronic pain. And I guess I have more mobility issues than I used to. And I've had a really hard time sort of even admitting to myself the degree to which it slows me down or makes it sort of hard to, multitask or do normal tasks at a job. And I feel like, a lot of pressure to fake it a lot of the time. So I'm really relieved to be in this space where I can kind of let down that guard a little bit and kind of really talk about, how do you keep being a maker when your energy levels and your pain levels are high and your energy levels are getting more limited? I'm quite hopeful about that, to tell you the truth, partly because of this community, but partly because I guess, I feel like people with disabilities are always learning to sort of make with what they have, and that's like really an extraordinary thing. So I think I get to pass it on to somebody I know, Jonathan Fletcher. Take it away.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sheila. And hello, everyone. I know a few of you, I think, and at least a few of you also. I've read your work in class. So my name is Jonathan Fletcher. I go by he, him, his. One thing I would say I don't usually bring into my identity is that I also, like Joe, I also identify as asexual. So I do identify as an ace. It's a relatively new thing for me in terms of I didn't come out until last summer, but I was thinking about this in terms of, when I usually write, I'll usually write either about my expressive aphasia or my mental illness or my, race, ethnic identity as Latinx male, or in my asexuality, but I don't sort of integrate them all together. And I've really, I'm really excited at the prospect of doing that. And also, just learning about more about disability poetics, meeting all of you, getting to know all of you in this space. It's amazing. So that's me. Thank you.
Hey, Tom. All right. I guess, is Kirani here or? I'm guessing it's Kirani. Robbie, would you like to go if Kirani had to leave? I know she's in London.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Rabi. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a Black Muslim woman from Ghana. I'm a graduate student at NMSU. I'm zooming in from Las Cruces. I'm excited to be back. Thank you for having me back here. And I'm happy to help whenever I'm needed. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Robbie. I think we skip down now to Salim. You've kind of gone, Sheila's gone, Tanya's gone. Urayawan, are you here?
I am. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Urayawan Noel, he, him, but I am not picky. So whatever you got, we'll work with it. Super excited to be faculty, super inspired by the community that you've all built. Thank you. My workshop, I'm really thinking about questions of body, mind, colonialism, ecologies, neurodivergence, performance, poetic form, aspects of my identity. The one that brought me here is lifelong epilepsy, but trying to think those through from the spaces of queerness, anxiety, fatigue, and these days I'll shout out chronic sinusitis, because with climate fueled pollen allergies and the end of the semester rush, I am really feeling it. So much love and support to other folks who, like me, feel like I'm sure we all feel like we're dragging. And I'm coming to you from the South Bronx, originally from Puerto Rico, so shout out to Taino and Lenape land.
I'm still muted. Thank you, Aryawan. That's great. We're so thrilled to have you here. Next is our own Walela.
What's good, y'all? I'm Walela. My pronouns are they, them. One aspect of my identity that I don't necessarily or often bring into a space, I would say, is silliness. I was going to go with like my asexuality, but everybody else hit it on the head like pretty hard. So I would say my silliness. I think like a lot of what it means to survive under capitalism and like fascism and just ableism and just all the things that we are forced to endure as disabled people, especially disabled colonized people. We're not allowed to have like the humanity of pleasure and silliness. So that's the vibe I'm gonna bring in for y'all. And my home, or where I'm zooming in from, my home is Los Angeles for as long as I can afford it. And that would be Tongva territory as well. So yeah, I really am just looking forward to this following week and just so excited to learn more about y'all. So just thank you for having me.
Hey, I'm Layla with the love. Karimi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Sheila. Hi, everyone. My name is Karemi. I use she and they pronouns. One aspect of my identity that I don't necessarily or feel comfortable bringing into all spaces is being bipolar. It's a diagnosis that I've had for a while, but like have been navigating through like internalized ableism, navigating through like recognizing what ableism will look like if like I disclose to folks who I'm not comfortable with, but wanting to like move forward in a brave and courageous and radical way and like just shun all of that stuff and want to bring that into this space. Home for me is a lot of places wherever I can take a good nap. But right now it's Orange County, California, and Tongva and Ashinamen land. Thank you.
Thank you, Orange County in the house. That's exciting. I would love to call up Nora.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Nora. My pronouns are she, they. One aspect of my identity that I don't necessarily bring into other spaces would be I'm currently pursuing an autism diagnosis, and I would also like to explore just body positivity and kind of sexuality and gender and all that. I'm zooming in from just outside of Toronto in Ontario. That's Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. And I grew up moving around East Africa, so I guess just anywhere there as well.
I moved around a lot too, Nora, so welcome. We're really thrilled to have you here. It's exciting to kind of get to know everybody. Tallulah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tallulah. That's my English name. And I also go by a pen name, which is Ceiling, kind of a bit like, if you look up the ceiling. I use they, them pronouns. If you speak Cantonese, you can also use koi, or if you speak Putonghua, you can use ta. Where am I zooming in from? I'm in London at the moment. You can probably hear from my voice that it's quite late here and I'm quite tired. And home is Hong Kong. That's where I was born. And further back, home is also southern China and Vietnam and other parts of Southeastern Asia. An aspect of my experience that I hope to welcome in during this retreat, I'm usually in a lot of like monolingual English speaking, English language spaces. And that means that I don't get to bring in, I guess, like the other languages that are a part of me, part of my family, part of my culture. And I think this includes like non-human languages as well. I don't get to bring those into spaces a lot. So I hope to welcome that in during this retreat. I think I've covered everything. Yeah, thanks. I'm so honored and so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, we're so honored you stayed up in London, and I love that idea of the multiple and including non-human languages. That's really interesting. And thanks for staying up, man. It's not easy. Welcome, Tallulah. I know Connie had to take off because she's working to the border. She's taken in a family of refugees, which is really neat. But she has to make dinner. So now I get to welcome somebody I know. Tate, introduce you. It's so good to hear your voice. I know.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I'm also kind of crying, so like bear with me. I'm having a very emotional
me
time
too.
right now. My name is Tate Okendo. My pronouns are they or he. And the last questions kind of tie in together, which is like why I'm kind of crying. So I am a queer, trans, disabled educator in the state of Florida, and that is where I am zooming from. And this ties into the answer to question 3 about like what aspects of your identity you don't really get to share. And all of that is really hard right now where I am located. And I'm always like, I'm going to work, afraid of bad news all the time. I changed my name a week before the Zoeglossia conference last year, and changed it at work shortly after that. And I'm just, nervous all the time. Like what weird thing is going to happen in Florida today? But I guess just really quickly, I'm so sorry. Really quickly,
No.
Those aspects of my identity I don't really get to share, the transness and the queerness and the disabled parts of me, just out of fear of retaliation and all the stuff going on locally. So I am just, this is a respite for me. I am so happy to be here amongst family.
Oh my God, now I'm gonna cry. I mean, this, first of all, what times we're living in, this should not be happening. And I feel like we all have to cry a little about that. And then we have to really be a community of care for each other. And it's a scary time to do that. I'm so happy you're here, Kate. I mean, I'm glad we can be a respite, and we just have to. God, I was gonna ask Lamar that, like, Lamar, what do we do? But we will. We're more powerful together than we are apart. At least we know that. Lovely to have you back, Tate. Olivia, we could have 2 Olivias in a row. So this is Olivia Munns.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Mewins. I use she, her
Sorry, I
pronouns.
missed that.
No, you're good.
Sorry.
Never pronounces it right, so you're fine. Thinking about question 3, I thought about it, for a bit, and I'm thinking about the very, very few experiences I've had being around the majority disabled people, especially in writing spaces, as opposed to most of them where I'm usually the only disabled person or openly disabled person. And I think it's kind of a negation of authority and like a relinquishing of authority, where I'm mostly in a state of hypervigilance and the medical setting, you know, being my own doctor, being my own caretaker, being my own everything, and having to sit with like this cumulative years of information in practical terms and then in theoretical, artistic, creative terms in my writing life. And what I found being with other disabled writers is just that capacity to understand and speak a different language that I'm used to speaking in, where I'm giving information. Whereas here, I know everyone will have, you know, the same information as me and can move in different ways. So I'm really looking forward to doing all of that with everyone. And I'm so grateful to be here. And I am here in the Hudson Valley in New York. Thank you.
Olivia, that resonated with me. I know I have a rare, you know, from birth genetic illness, and I was over 40 before I met another person who sort of had my body shape, and that was very, very interesting. And I do think there's this sort of realm of knowledge that you're always sort of interpreting. I think that's what Leslie was talking about with legibility, like you're always sort of performing a version of yourself this other world can kind of understand or accept, which is very interesting and kind of a lot of pressure too. Olivia Pepper, welcome. Is Olivia Pepper here? I know it's getting late and we are over time, so I'm
And
thinking
apologies,
some
my
people-
focus has been split. I've been trying to help Pinka get in for the last 10 minutes. So thank you for keeping it moving, Sheila. But Olivia, I believe, has already stepped off.
Okay, great. Bree Joy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Bri.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. I'm Bri Joy, Yakshini
Bri, sorry, I'm the queen of mispronouncing names. I'm sorry, I'll get them. Bri, thank you. Go ahead.
It's an everyday occurrence, Bri like sky. So I am calling in from Tongvaland, also known as LA, and my partner is recording me right now, and I don't appreciate it. The recording has stopped. Oh my God. I'm sorry, y'all. My partners are causing all sorts of trouble. But I'm very excited to be here. I can't believe that I get to be a part of this wonderful community. I already feel so at home. My pronouns are ZZer. And if you need help with conjugation, I can definitely do that for you. Don't worry if you make a mistake. One aspect of my identity. So I kind of already asked about writing deeper into sensitive material, aka like talking about sexual assault. That is something that I bring into my work, but something that I don't often share with people is my ability / inability to incorporate patois, Jamaican patois, because that's my culture. I'm proud Jamaican, but I want to incorporate that patois, that flavor into my poetry. So hopefully you'll hear some patois this weekend. I don't know. I might try it. But yeah, that's what I'm bringing.
you, Bri. It's interesting. Several people have talked about language, multiple languages or languages you've had to kind of cover up or deny. Cholula mentioned it. Other people have mentioned languages that are not have not been accessible. So that's exciting. That's a kind of interesting thing to think about. Thank you. We're delighted to have you here. And now I get to welcome another person I know from last year. This is the wonderful Elizabeth. Elizabeth Mead, are you still here?
Yes, I am still here. Thanks for that, Sheila. I'm really excited to be here. In fact, I didn't sleep well last night because I was really excited about this. And it's my birthday tomorrow. So there's that too. I was like excited about both things happening. Yeah, I'll be 33. Thanks. So yes, my name is Elizabeth Mead. Thanks everyone for the happy birthday wishes. Pronouns I go by mostly are she, her. Yeah, just most familiar, I guess. I've never really tried out other ones, so I'm just going with those. Although I am always curious and amused about other people's perspective of my gender is. So I always found that interesting. One aspect of my identity that I would like to bring in, I've been thinking a lot recently, actually trying to write about it recently, and hopefully I'll bring this in, but I don't often bring into spaces my sexual attraction to women, and the fact that two of my identities are very visible. I use a power wheelchair for mobility and have brown skin, as you can see in my picture, if you can see it. So yeah, but then there's my lesbianism, and still in the very long process of embodying it and accepting it and along with recognizing internalized ableism that has played a part in my comfortability in queer spaces as well. So trying to do all of that at the same time, and yeah, I'm really just looking forward to finding ways to embody and include the embodiment of my sexual desire towards women in my writing. Yeah. You're muted, Sheila.
Elizabeth, I love that answer. Because I love that. I hope we can sort of be a space of like vulnerability is a positive force that, it feels like one of the things people with disabilities learn very quickly is sort of how rigid the world is about you've shared this much and not that. We can accept this, but not that. I kind of think we're born with it. And I think other people in many identities struggle with that. And I feel like because it's so much a thing that we have to grapple with, we're able in some ways to be more radically honest and loving with each other and with hopefully the world. I mean, I kind of think Lamar was somewhat talking about that tonight. It's a beautiful answer. We're thrilled to have you here. Welcome back. Our next fellow is also someone I'm welcoming back, and they may have left, but Heidi, are you here still, or did you have to go?
Heidi's gone.
Yeah. Okay. So Rabbi is not there. So I am now going to welcome another new person. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Rel, are you here?
Hi.
Hi.
My pen name is Rel. I also go by Leo. Yeah, my pronouns are he, him. Something that I am very I'm going to say relieved to be able to bring to this space, because I think that's the word that best describes it, is I have been unable, due to outside circumstances, to talk about my childhood and growing up. And so it's the reason I use a pen name, because I have decided that I need to start making progress in speaking out for myself and strengthening my own voice. And so this is the first space I've had in my entire life where I've been able to start talking about that. And so I'm very, very excited to be here. I'm originally from rural Oregon, but I currently live in and am zooming in from Brooklyn. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rel. Where in rural Oregon? Just out of curiosity. My husband's from very rural Oregon, so I learned a lot about it.
Silverton, a very terrible place that I like to call the hellmouth of Oregon, if for those who are Buffy fans.
Yeah, no, I know. I remember Silverton. Yeah, my husband was from Baker, so yeah, I spent Eastern Oregon-y kind of Burns, Baker. Yeah. Well, we're delighted you're here. And welcome to the space. Next is Ren. Ren and as I said, I've always had a hard time pronouncing words properly. When I went to my one college interview, I got rejected because I kept saying I like the writer Goethe. Nobody knew who I was talking about. I mean, so if I mispronounce your name, don't hesitate to correct me and accept my apologies ahead of time. It's always like I have a hard time with it. But Ren, I'd love to hear you introduce yourself if you're still here.
Yes, I am. Hi, I'm a little bit like overwhelmed because I like finished my last final of undergrad at like 5 a.m. this morning, and then which was about my cane, and then I promptly fell down the stairs, so I'm in like a lot of pain. But thank you so much. I feel so honored and like also like so kind of like overstimulated with like good emotions being in this space. A lot of the people in this space are people who were like written about in my senior thesis, which was about like the poetry of trans and disabled people of color and like finding community through like writing poetry and writing into like what often feels like a very isolated, I don't know, like embodiment. Something that I don't share very often, but that I have been trying to share more is that my altar is something that really matters so much to me, and I feel very strongly and as like an altar builder. And like I always say, which connects to the third thing, which is that like home is always where I think like where like the person who is both in my given and chosen lineage, my grandma is, which is Tongva land in LA. But currently I live in where a lot of my poetry and like queer and like especially like specifically QTPOC like spoken word community is, which is on Narragansett and Wampanoag land in Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah, thank you so much.
I was saying we are very, very happy to have you, and I love the idea of the altar being important and relating to your grandmother. That's neat. Thanks for coming and being here with us. Kwame Daniels, are you here?
Hi. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kwame Sound Daniels. My pronouns are they, zir. I really debated on sharing what aspect of my identity to share. It's all wrapped up. It's all interconnected. I don't know how to disentangle everything from everything else. But one thing I've been ruminating on is that I am a stone and I am a dyke that is neither masc nor femme, but also masc and femme, and how that intersects with my indigeneity, and how I never get to connect with my indigeneity outside of food and reading because I'm disabled and I can't go to community events. I can't go out and meet people very often. People have to come to me usually. So I've been trying to navigate what it means to be brown in multiple ways and Black and to understand what sexual intimacy is in the wake of being brown and Black and Indigenous and like it's so hard to talk about this because I don't usually yeah, in the wake of trauma, what does it mean to be a stone in the wake of so many traumas, intergenerational, interpersonal? Yeah, so I'm trying to find my dykeness. So thanks. It's nice to meet everyone. I'm excited to work with you all. Oh, and I'm calling from Baltimore, right outside of Baltimore, Piscataway land.
Gosh, well, I am really excited about all the poetry that's eventually going to come out of this retreat, because it feels as if, so many people in this group are grappling with kind of the big questions you ask in really interesting ways, like how do you navigate your specific territories? And it's just really moving to hear all your answers. Welcome. I'm really happy you're here. And the last person I get to introduce on this list is a fellow who's been with us for a couple years, and I know I'm really excited. Leslie, hey, I was so happy to always see you. So come on and speak up if you're still here. I hope you.
I am. I feel so like embraced by the space. I feel like that I don't know what to say. That I don't know that the vibe of the room hasn't already articulated for me. I'm Leslie. This is my third time with Zoeglossia, and I'm just so happy to be back. As always, to be in this space with this group of people. It's one of my essential poetry homes. I am male presenting, but I accept all pronouns that are respectfully used. My home is where I can safely close the door and windows, but right now that is most consistently located in stolen Muncie Lenape land, that is going by the name of Jersey City, New Jersey. And one aspect of my identity that I don't necessarily bring into other spaces is my interiority. My professional work and my creative life are very divorced from one another. And a part of that, I would say, is largely related to me still navigating the maze of internalized ableism. And also certain just coping mechanisms that I've developed in my life pertaining to autism spectrum disorder. So it typically just makes more sense to have a really compartmentalized sort of life. That's changing though, bit by bit. And I'm happy that I have homes like this where I get to sit in my interiority in a way that is less guarded. And so one thing that could come out this time around is aspects of softness, aspects of dealing with adult loneliness in my late 30s now, and thinking through in a way that I don't do out loud very often, but a new manuscript that I'm starting that's a lot of prose mostly, but dealing with epigenetics and neurobiology and racism and evolutionary theory. It's coming together the more I just blah. But that gets to I get to share that with you guys where I would typically not, because it's very nascent, it's very newly formed. So yeah, I'm so happy to I'll be happy to see everyone when that's available, and welcome to the new people. And welcome back. I'm so excited to see the people who I've seen before, and go us.
Sheila, you're muted. Sheila, you're muted.
That's hysterical. I'm talking away. I was going to say, Leslie, it's so great to hear what you had to say. And I was also going to say to everyone, and then I'll let Celine take over, that we won't always not be able to see each other. This is the webinar, and then we'll be in the meetings and in the workshops, and we won't have that problem, which is great because it's nice to be able to see everyone's face. Though I have to say, I enjoyed listening to everyone on audio because it made me really slow down and pay attention. And it was an incredible, you guys are an incredible group. It's going to be an incredible retreat, I think. Salim, I know you were trying to help pink us. So do you want to say a few words?
My apologies. This is Tom, the interpreter. And when I got booted and came back in, I no longer have camera rights. So I cannot relieve my Team Joe.
Okay, let me talk to David. Is David still able to hear us?
Yes,
David,
we can't have video on. We can't have the video on because of how I set it up before I started the webinar. But I could change the rest of the webinars from now on to be just regular meetings and not have to deal with webinars.
Earlier, Tom had video rights. He's the interpreter. Can you?
Oh, okay. He was. Let's see. Yeah, I can make him co-host. Yeah.
My apologies.
That's okay, Tom. I'm so glad you let us know. Thank you. I'm sorry, everyone.
And thanks, Joe, for continuing. And so I was like, Tom left you, you know.
Okay, Tom, you should have rights now. Yeah, I just can't make everybody co-hosts. I have limitations on how many people I can make co-hosts. Sheila, do you want me to change all the webinars to meetings from now on?
What do you? Yes, I think so.
I'll fix that tonight.
Thank you so much.
Because I think we're a tight group. We want to be able to definitely have the conversations and be able to see people. We could be more sophisticated, that webinar type of retreat, but I think we're not there. We're like a community that needs to see each other. So it was great to hear everybody's intro, though. It was really lovely, and I'm really excited. I have so many like Ren, I'm feeling a little like overwhelmed by emotion and ideas and all the interesting commonalities that came up between embodiment and navigation and self-care, but also I think that was a really interesting question that you asked, Celine. What parts of our identity do we leave out? I mean, I really heard a couple of times people talking about being guarded, and that resonated for me. I think many of us tend to be pretty guarded in our lives, and then in our art, that's often something we really feel the need to undo in some way.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for your time and just being here. I know we are across 3 international time zones and 4 domestic time zones, and what is international and domestic anyway. But I did want to kind of sort of orient us to the next few days. It's nice to kind of know where we're going. The schedule has been emailed. I also have it as a Google Drive link so that you can be able to access it there as well. And that's in PDF form, so it should be pretty easy to open. The other document is a contact list that will include everybody's group 1, 2, or 3. And it also includes the evening reading section, the evening readings of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then it includes everybody's name, pronouns, and their contact preference. We didn't want to assume that everybody's using cells. Some people have been very specific, a DM works on this handle, or WhatsApp is the only thing that works here. So we have that indicated. And this is the same for faculty, workshop leaders, and Zoeglossia staff, so that you can contact anybody. Heard from a handful of people that there are different scheduling conflicts, so we would respectfully ask that you update your faculty if you're going to need to be late or leave early or miss a workshop, so that they can prepare or modify any of their plans. The day is long, you know, if you look on paper, it looks like 7 a.m. Mountain to 7 p.m. Mountain. We want to really encourage everyone to take care of themselves, and being in front of a screen for 12 hours is I don't think it counts as self-care, unless it's like, I don't know, like a meditation screen. Even that's too much. You don't need that. So we do want to make sure that folks are taking breaks, taking care. We tried to build in that time in between the morning workshop. The middle of the day is completely optional, so honestly you can do the morning and not have to be back in front of Zoom till the late afternoon, early evening. So definitely there's no expectation to push yourself beyond what feels right for you. The biggest thing is just communication, just to reach out. The staff you'll see on this contact sheet are all listed. If there's somebody who's highlighted, it means they're like a designated point person for something. So really just be able to go through and you know, have the autonomy to communicate, you know, your needs either directly to another person in the community or to a Zoeglossia staff if you want us to relay something. So with that stated, we start up with our workshops tomorrow. Group 1 is 7 a.m. Mountain. Group 2 and 3 both start at 10 a.m. Mountain. Super excited. You each have about, you know, like I said, 6 to 8 people in your group, and so you'll really get to be with them. You're all going to get a chance to work with each faculty. The faculty rotate through your small group, so by the time you get to Sunday, you would have gotten to connect with all of our illustrious faculty this year. So I am incredibly excited, and just feel free to reach out individually. I'm going to literally send the contact sheet. I'm just missing a couple people's information, and then I'm going to be able to send this out to everybody momentarily. So unless I see any like sad face emojis come through, any like really big frowny face or thumbs down, then I'm going to see if that is consent for us to adjourn for the evening.
There was a couple of questions in the chat I wanted to mention. Elizabeth asked, when would they be getting links to share to the public readings? Elizabeth, there's a flyer. We will mail it out tonight. It has a link embedded in it, the readings.
No, Sheila, they have to register through the Zoom, the registration link. Yeah, we don't get, so we're using Zoom Events. It's a platform that you can only register for the whole Zoom Events platform, and then you can pick and choose the public readings. So there's not a direct link to the public readings. You have to register on Zoom Events.
Excuse me, hi, this is Tanya. Yeah, no, David had given us a link specifically for the public readings.
Yeah, he has.
Yes. Yeah, so there's not a direct link to each public reading. It's just one registration link.
Yes, okay. It just sounded kind of confusing there, but yes, there is a link that is embedded in the announcement, the PDF Sheila talked about that we can send out.
I'll add it to the schedule so that people can see the clickable link right there. But just to reiterate, people still have to register. Like they can't just click this link at 3:30 Mountain and immediately get in. Is that correct, David?
That is correct.
I do think it's important that we're going to need to stress
David,
that.
how long is the registration process? It's not
as
very
long as it's just a first last name, and then the link will be confirmed in an email.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we will send you guys an email out that describes that. And I guess I would recommend that you email people and tell them to, you know, get there like 10 minutes ahead or something. Literally, it's just you enter your first name, last name, you go to your email, you click yes, and you're in.
Yep,
so it's not too terrible.
And once you get that notification, you can enter any of the public readings as scheduled. You don't have to have different links for each public reading. It will be all in one platform.
Okay, that's great to know. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is we'll be hanging around in the lobby. We don't go into the workshops with you, but you will have our cell phones or emails. And if you at any point have any technical or accessibility needs in the workshop, like you suddenly get thrown off the platform or whatever might happen, the workshops will completely be guarded from the public, Leslie. So that's why there was a separate link. The public cannot get into the workshops. In fact, not even Zoeglossia staff goes into the workshops. We're in the lobby, just so that if somebody gets thrown out and is in the lobby, we can help them. But we don't actually go in the workshops. That's your kind of protected space. But bottom line, what I was kind of hoping to get across is email or text us if you have any technical problems. I hope you don't. And usually what we found in the past is usually the first keynote, there's a few technical glitches here and there, but then everyone's on the platform and it works really pretty well. So we haven't experienced too many, but we are working across many different internet systems and time zones. So the other thing we want you to know is if you do have any problems, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll do what we can. Celine, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's it. I appreciate everybody's patience and grace as we get adjusted to our technology. Hopefully we'll have all our fellows able to be in small groups in the morning. And I look forward to seeing you all either in my workshop in the afternoon and or if not, then I'll hopefully see everybody in the evening for the reading.
Yeah. Lovely to see you all.
Thanks, everyone.